Welcome to the Provider Podcast. My name's Carl Muir. I'm an adventure guide and men's health coach on the Coromandel in New Zealand. I've taken people fishing and out into the outdoors for the last 20 years and realised along the way that in nature is where we get our well-being. 4 years ago I studied as a health coach with Precure, and I've been taking men on a 4-day men's retreat as my signature offering for the last 4 years. In this podcast, I'm going to share some tips for resilience, self-sufficiency, and well-being. I hope you enjoy the listen. During the lockdowns 2020, 2021, I recorded a few podcasts while there was not too much else to do, and used these podcasts as a way of connecting in with other like-minded men around New Zealand and Australia. Some old contacts, some old mates, and people that are on the similar walker as myself. And it was a really good platform and I enjoyed it. Been reasonably busy since then, but I thought I'd kick these podcasts back off again. And the last ones, I talked to other people, interviewed them, shared some commonalities between us. I thought what I'd do with this series is actually challenge myself by choosing a few topics and just talking to you myself. I think through the work I've been doing with the men's wellbeing retreats and through my own lived experience as well, I've got a little bit to share, hopefully, and I hope you like what I have to share. So the first topic that I'm going to talk about in this podcast series is called Cultivating Resilience. Resilience is a much talked about word. Definitely heard it a lot. Even, I guess in the last 6 or 7 years, it's been a hot topic, resilience. More so as the shit's hit the fan, really, over the last few years. So COVID, lockdowns, and then all this bad weather we've been having lately. So I guess a starting point is resilience. How do we define it and what is it? That's where I'm going to start. So what is resilience? The Collins Dictionary, let's go there for a definition first of all, defines resilience as the power or ability to return to the original form, position, etc. after being bent, compressed, or stretched. Secondly, the ability to recover readily from illness, depression, adversity, or the like. I'm going to critique that in saying that with regards to human resilience, I don't think you ever return to your usual form after a challenge if you learn something from it. So I think that's the key to resilience, really. So my definition that I'm going to use specifically for this podcast is resilience is learnings and mental fitness, physical fitness, and spiritual fitness gained from lived experience that helps you adapt, survive, or flourish in tough and often unexpected situations. And we can all relate to unexpected situations after the last 4 or 5 years, that's for sure. There's also the concept out there of like a collective resilience. So that's the ability of like a family, an organization, or a community to be able to come together and adapt because of what they've collectively learnt from a previous situation. And you can see that with, here on the Coromandel, are we that resilient as a region? Our roading network's obviously not. And maybe as a tourism industry, we're not either. That's something probably for another discussion. Today, I'm largely going to be talking about individual resilience because I strongly believe you're going to be in a better position to help others and the community if you're coming from like a inner strength and from a strong and resilient core. And after all, that's a motivation to be resilient, not just for yourself, but in tough situations, that you're strong, you're there for your whānau, for your community, and you can lead with purpose. So why am I even talking about resilience? Well, I guess through the work that I do with men, with my health coaching and on retreats and dealing with men that going through a bit of mental distress, emotional turmoil, maybe burnout, or going through some big life changes. Resilience is something that we talk about a lot. One of the big things is remembering just how resilient we are. And I bring that back to when I went through a bit of my own stuff, maybe 5 years ago. And I'd gone through some big life changes. A few years beforehand, my father died. I sold a business that I'd worked on for 10 years and sort of burnt myself out with that, really. And then went through a divorce, which, some major life changes, and the shit hit the fan. And I remember people saying at the time, talking about this thing called resilience. And I was like, well, I'm resilient. Like, my last business, I went to sea 250 days a year, getting up 5 o'clock in the morning every day, working till very, very late, doing all the admin and looking after guests, looking after staff. And I'm tough, I'm resilient. And why am I feeling like this? So I think regardless of what we've done in life, we've got to recognize that out of nowhere things can change, and our life all of a sudden changes. So going to talk about today things that you can do just day to day in your life to build that resilience and build that mindset and build that mental strength and spiritual strength so you can weather any storm. So what I'm going to talk about is 12 things you can do to cultivate resilience. The first thing, and I guess one of the most important things, is recognizing that change is constant and change is a part of nature, and we're a part of nature. So everything in nature goes through cycles. Everything on this planet goes through cycles. And you've only got to look at what the weather's done in New Zealand, especially the North Island, in the last 8 or 9 months, and everything goes in cycles. And you just got to look into the hills and see, we're talking about, there's this slip or that slip. Well, look at how the rivers are formed. This stuff's been going on for billions of years. Nature keeps evolving, and we keep evolving. So the most resilient people in life know that change is the only certainty. Second, to cultivate resilience, you need to do hard things from time to time and put yourself in testing situations. And again, I was talking about at the start, going through my own crises and thinking, shit, I've done hard things. I've done a half Ironman. I've done a marathon. I've been there, I've done that. So I think we've got to do things. We've got to do hard things. But we've got to do a variety of hard things, and keep doing them, not resting on our laurels. Like, yeah, I've done a marathon or I've done a half Ironman, but that was quite a while ago. What have I kept doing and kept doing to put myself in challenging situations? And I guess even just doing this podcast is one of those things. I'm a good writer. I've really got to work at my oration. I'm pretty good at doing that in a one-on-one or even a small group situation, but doing it out to the world on a podcast on Spotify or YouTube, that's new territory for me. So it's a challenge I set for myself. Physically, we can do hard things. We can set ourselves some goals. Even just putting the shoes on and going out for a run every day. It's hard. It's tough. But that's where physical fitness comes from. Number 3, resilient people observe and learn from other resilient people. So a good way to cultivate resilience is to put yourself in situations where you can learn from people that are resilient and learn new things. And I'm talking about all sorts of things, like learning how to grow your food and grow a food forest, grow a garden, learn how to get on the tools, build a fence, do some building. We're lucky in this day and age that there's so much information about being self-sufficient on the internet, and you can put yourself in these situations. She was sitting at a retreat, and that was back in March, and going around the table and setting our intentions for after the retreat, what we're going to do differently in our lives. And actually at the end of it, I'd say, I'm the facilitator here, but maybe I'm going to commit to something as well. And actually, when's the last time that I did something where I put myself in a situation where I was a passenger instead of being a facilitator, and actually learned something where it was just all completely new information and something that was going to add to my skill set. And so I signed up for a food forest course, a 2-day food forest course, and just learned a wealth of information that I could bring back to my land, and spent a couple of weeks just getting stuck into my land and increasing the genetic diversity of what I've got here and organizing how I grow things a little bit differently. And it completely expanded my mind in terms of how close you can grow trees and plants to each other. We've been told you can only grow trees 3 or 4 meters separate from each other, whereas this guy just plants everything in rows of things completely packed together and stacks as much organic matter, prunes really hard, and just gets an amazing amount of food out of a small space. That's just one example. So itemize the things that you would like to cultivate resilience wise, whether it's fitness, mindset, spirituality, growing your own food, learning how to catch fish on your back doorstep, and start following some cool people, start connecting with them. So number 4, call on the resilience that is in your DNA. Call on your ancestors. If I go back down my paternal side, that is Muir. Our motto for Clan Muir is Drum Potentio Farango, which means through patience, I break what is hard. That's a pretty strong statement about resilience. And that's from my clan, going back Scottish, Celtic, Gaelic, Ireland. Pretty strong statement about everything in my genealogy that my ancestors had to go through. So wars, famine, everything in between. And I want you to have a think about the miracle that is you, and the miracle it is to be alive right now, and everything going back in time that's had to take place for you to be here. So your ancestors, your collective ancestors, have seen ice ages. They've probably fought off wildebeests and mammoths and tigers and lions at some stage. They've been through famines. They've been through actual pandemics, not scandemics, pandemics. They've been through ocean voyages, been through all sorts of climate change. So have a think about the resilience that is passed down in your cells, in your DNA. Think about the resilience you can tap into if you're a spiritual person, and talk to your ancestors, as we can and as you can learn to do. Just have a think about the questions you can ask them, And in tough times, it's good just to get some quiet time and have a chat to them. You'll find the answers doing that. Number 5, learning to go without. This is a really important part of resilience. Because in this day and age where we've got everything on tap, sometimes it's good training just to go without. Something I do is while I'm on land, I haven't managed it really to do it on the boat yet, but I fast every day, intermittent fasting. So when I get up in the morning, I don't really eat till midday or later. I do that so my body gets used to relying on burning fat rather than carbohydrate to stimulate ketosis and my body running on ketones. But it is also a psychological thing of even if you've got a bit of hunger, just to push through it for your body and your mind to be a bit more resilient. So I think it's the same with alcohol. You know, a lot of us lean on alcohol just to punch through hard times. And if you can train your mind and body not to rely on having a beer at the end of the day, or if you come home a bit stressed out, again, it's one thing you can learn to go without. And in doing that, that cultivates resilience. Okay, number 6. You can build resilience by observing and learning from nature. Just being still in nature, connecting with plants and the animals, with celestial objects, even with we're Pounamu for a reason. It's to remind us we're strong. It's to tap into for strength. Rock is one of the oldest things on this planet, and it holds intelligence and memories just like any living thing does. So things that you can tap into in nature, plants and trees are a very, very good example of resilience. You know, the first thing you do when you plant a tree is it puts its roots down. So what can we learn from that? We can learn to ground ourselves, put our roots down into the earth, make sure you've got a strong foundation. So there's lots of things you can do for a strong foundation. A lot of things we've talked about so far in this podcast. Also, you know, make sure you've got a good stable financial platform. Look after your finances. Make sure you've got a good network of friends who you can trust, who can listen to you without judgment. Choose your friends wisely. What else can we learn from plants? One of the things I think that you learn from, especially if you do a bit of gardening, is a little bit of pruning. Helps you grow. Go and prune a branch off a tree, and it puts out this thing called growth hormone, and it gets a bit of a growth spurt. What can we learn from that as human beings is don't hold on to everything. Do some pruning. Do some pruning on a regular basis. If you hold on to everything, or try and hold on to everything, as I see with, you know, a lot of clients, they've got a lot of assets, a lot of networks, a lot of stuff going on, a lot of projects, but sometimes not all of those projects are serving you. I know this from myself. I've probably historically been one of the worst in that, but I know the more you prune things and the more you focus on what actually serves you and doing what matters, that is where growth comes from, and it opens up so much room for cool new things to come into your life. So that is another way we can learn and observe from nature. Another thing is observing, you know, in the plant world is especially regenerating a piece of land like I'm doing at the moment, is just observing all the things that pop up and doing some research. And you'll find, most of the things that pops up in nature, the first thing that'll pop up is a dandelion or a puha, and it serves a purpose. Plantain, another plant that'll pop up, serves a purpose. It's all there to get the soil regenerating, putting minerals back into the soil, creating some shade and some shelter, collecting moisture to put back into the land. So the worst thing you can do is go and spray it and ruin the soil. And you can take that back to ourselves as well, not everything that comes into our life is a problem or a weed. Some things that come into our lives, they might look like a bit of a pest, but they're there to teach us a lesson. So there's another thing that nature tells us. Another thing that nature tells us, you can look at something like the Kodi tree and patience and time. How long does it take for a Kodi tree to reach to the sky? Hundreds, thousands of years. But it's got patience, and it stands tall, it stands mighty, and it ends up being Tāne Mahuta, king of the forest. You can learn lots of other things being at sea in the ocean as well, and observing, and you can observe a lot of resilience out on the ocean. I think one of the things I observe at sea is ultimately everything revolves around food. Everything in the ocean, it's about hunting food, how you use food, especially with the birds and with the fish. They rest in between hunting their food, and they use their energy very wisely. So it's another thing for us, in between what we've got to do in life, we should take the time to have a rest, which brings me on to point 7, the importance of rest for resilience. So I talked about doing challenging things, putting yourself in challenging situations. And that creates a thing called muscle memory, which any high performance athlete has that muscle memory. So someone like Sam Cane, or back in the day, Richie McCaw, an absolute weapon on the field, right? Just built through years and years of training, which gives him muscle memory. And from time to time, he had some big breaks, but he'd come back bigger and better than ever through that ability to rest and recover. And it's something we need to think about as well. We can't just keep going on day to day to day to day to day and think we're going to be able to keep doing that. Sometimes we've got to take a step back, have a rest, and it's good to get in a rhythm of doing that. Some days it's a daily rest, making sure you get your good solid 8 hours of uninterrupted sleep every day. Fundamentally important for mental health, physical health, for our cell regeneration, our immunity, our cognition, ability to be able to file information mentally to call on later on. And it's not just daily. So then there's other cycles. So in a year, you're going to be way more active in summer, right? Out there, sun shining. There's a bit of a festive vibe going on in summer, out in the outdoors a lot more. And then this time of year in winter, bunker down a little bit more, sleeping a little bit more. I know I spend a little bit of time this time of year. I don't usually watch TV the rest of the time of year. but I watch a little bit on demand and watch some series that I like I really like Alone. Guys in Alaska, I just watched the one in Alaska where they're left alone for 100 days to fend for themselves. Pretty awesome series. But again, I don't do that in summer, but I get into this cycle right every year of I have quite a bit more downtime during the winter because I know I need to tap into it in summer when I'm a lot busier. So rest is important for resilience so that you have the reserves to, when you need it, hit your straps. It's uncanny if I think about some real big things that have happened in my life. Uh, Somehow, maybe spiritually, I knew that was coming, and I would be sleeping a lot beforehand, and then all of a sudden you're like, geez, thank goodness I had some of those daytime sleeps last week because now I need it because I'm going full bore. Rest. So another important thing to cultivate resilience is to get a deeper understanding of the emotional landscape. This is something I go into a lot on our retreats, is understanding emotions and energy. So when we're placed in a situation that we might perceive as a threat to us, we go back to that, quite often go back to that fight or flight response, and our sympathetic nervous system, fight or flight, kicks into play unless you've trained your emotional system and your body to operate as much as possible on your parasympathetic nervous system. What can you do to cultivate better control of your emotions? So I'm talking really how I define this as 2 tiers. So your lower emotions, your negative emotions, fear, anger, grief, shame, all emotions in that downward spiral. Activated quite often by threats, and our DNA, we've been taught to, back in the day where our ancestors had actual big scary animals coming at them from time to time to get the flick away from something that was a threat. But in this day and age, there's a lot going on in the world, but is it really a threat to you? Like we're actually pretty strong, resilient human beings these days, and there's not too much, unless there's a tsunami or something like that coming at you, that we can deal with most situations. Going back to that tier of emotions, your positive emotions, joy, happiness, love, peace. These are all emotions which are positive emotions. And the emotions that we focus on will be the emotions we attract. So if you focus on the fear, if you focus on the anxiety, you'll get it back. And you'll get all those other negative emotions too. You focus on the good things in life, love, peace, joy. Spend some time actually thinking about them. Think about joy, for example, taking some time to cultivate joy for yourself, making a list of all those things that bring you joy that you can do on your own, whether it's going for a dive on your own, or going for a fish on your own, or going up to the top of a mountain on your own, or just spending an hour on the couch watching a series you really like, or reading a book that you really like. Things that bring you joy and doing it on a daily basis. These are all things that make you a more resilient person, because when you perceive a threat, you can pause, take a breath, and go, actually, I choose not to react to that. It sounds easy, but it takes practice. And on that note, I'm going to say number 9 is building a strong inner sanctuary and fortress. Whoa, that sounds pretty large. Well, it's something that you can do simply by taking time out on your own, finding some quiet and some still, and meditating. In this day and age, there's no shortage of ways to learn and practice meditation. Meditation and guided meditation is something we do on retreat, and it's something you can do every day. And the more you do it and the more you practice, like anything, just like going for a run or going fishing, tying a knot, the more you do it, the more then you can just do it yourself. Meditation is really a way to build an inner strength and finding that stillness in the place of a storm. So regardless of what is blowing around outside you, and regardless of any situation you're in, you can be centered, you can breathe, and you can have that calm spot. And maybe just have a little smile on your face at everyone else losing their shit. Have a little laugh. And the more you do it, the more like, what's your little secret there? Definitely something that I've had to practice a lot, because some of you might know I've been reasonably vocal over the last few years, and I've just learnt to maybe sometimes keep my mouth shut and just have a little giggle at I think I did it this week when I saw someone who was born a man won Miss Universe, and I'm like, just have a laugh instead of losing my shit. Okay, number 10, cultivating a resilient body. Your body is your temple. Remember that. And sometimes it's going to be too late to call on it if you haven't done the work when the shit hits the fan. So it's good to have that fitness in a time where you might have a threat in front of you. Might be good to be able to bust 3K out in a hurry from time to time. How's your fitness? Some other things you can do is build some good fat stores. We've been told that fat's evil. What a load of bollocks! You watch that series alone where they're in the Arctic, and they're trying to find fat. Fat is their store. Fat is your store of energy. And how much good fat are you eating in your diet? And is your body running on fat, or is it running on spikes in carbohydrate? Having a good store of fat is good for your energy stores, and it's also, as you get older, good for your brain. Things like dementia and Alzheimer's, ultimately, if you really look into it, is caused by a lack of good fat over the years. Fat is good for your neurological system. How's your flexibility? Again, it's something that I think resilience is intrinsically linked to our ability to stay healthy as we get older. And we have a real issue with morbidity in New Zealand. Morbidity being that gap between a healthy life and when you pass away. And, sometimes that's 10, 20, 30 years of bad health, knee replacements, hip replacements, not being able to move around. Flexibility is probably one of the most fundamental things we can do to prolong our life and our good health. Getting up in the morning, I've got a little bit of a routine. It's just a little bit. I've been to a few yoga classes over the years, and I've just taken some learnings from that, and I do some intuitive movement along the lines of yoga and just listen to my body. Got a series of stretches I do. I'll share them on my retreat. So if you're keen to learn more, you're welcome to come along, or just hunt down a beginner's yoga class, and you can hunt that down. Plenty of yoga studios all around the country, or just jump on YouTube and there's some really good channels to learn a bit of yoga. At the end of the day, yoga means union, means bringing all of those pieces that you've had spread apart and scattered around, that all those things in the outer world have distracted your attention, and just bringing them right back into the now and becoming centered again. There's something in these ancient tools of movement and prayer, and these ancient wisdoms and texts, that there's something in it. I'm going to talk about that more soon. But on cultivating a resilient body, the other thing I'm going to mention is endurance. So being able to go to distance is really important. Something definitely learned being a charter skipper over the years, and just being able to go back to back to back to back to back. That was resilience. And you never know, never knew as a charter skipper when you're going to have to do that. So you had to have that muscle memory of endurance, because you might get a 20-day run, and at that stage I was booked up nearly every day, so you might get a 20-day run of good weather. That hasn't happened for a long time in New Zealand. But it used to happen all the time, and you just go back to that. Endurance, it's good to do some cardio from time to time and get that cardio fitness. It's also good to have that endurance and be able to go long distances. Humans used to be the endurance athletes of the planet. Lots of people still do it, running ultra marathons and things. But if you look at the average person in New Zealand society, how long could they last? 250,000 people in our country have got type 2 diabetes. Obesity is off the hook. We need to work on developing more resilient bodies in New Zealand. Definitely. The last few years, it wasn't even really a topic during COVID, but fundamentally, that was a major risk factor for COVID as well. Number 11, hunt out some ancient wisdom. I don't think it's something we do enough in this day and age. Looking back, all the clues about health and well-being and resilience and our connection to the spiritual world, they're all there in ancient texts. And regardless of where we come from and what culture, if you really look at it, the teachings are pretty similar. There's been lots of squabbles over the years between this text and that text, but when you really look at the teachings of all sorts of indigenous cultures and all sorts of ancient texts, including the Bible, there's so many commonalities, it's not funny. One book that I found really good that I've been reading lately, called The Wisdom Codes, by a really cool fellow called Greg Braden. He's a geologist and a scientist, and he's studied many ancient texts. And he's written this book which brings together lots of commonalities, and just found some little nuggets from there's like some Navajo sayings, there's stuff from the Quran, there's stuff from the Bible, stuff from various various discovered gospels that weren't included in the Bible. One thing I was going to read out from the book actually came from the New International Version of the Bible. And it's a text that I think is really relevant for resilience. The Lord is my shepherd, I lack nothing. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside quiet waters. He refreshes my soul. He guides me along the right paths for his name's sake. Even though I walk through the darkest valley, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. I anoint my head with oil. My cup overflows. Surely your goodness and love will follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Strong words. Lots of wisdom and strength you can find in ancient texts like that if you really look into them. I'd highly recommend this book. Greg Braden. You can actually find it on my website. I got a list of lots of books that I have in my library on my retreats. So go to theprovider.co.nz/books and you'll find a few of my favorite books from the library. Some links there to click through and grab them. Go for it. Number 12 is bridge the gap between knowledge and doing. So that's the gap between knowledge, experience, and wisdom, which is what I was just talking about. So it's all well and good to know stuff like know about nutrition, know about fitness, but unless you put those shoes on and go for a run, don't mean nothing. So what are you going to do to bridge gap between knowledge, listening to everything I've said here, and doing? Knowledge, experience, wisdom. That continuum is all about reading about it, listening about it, hearing it, reading it, but then actually going out and doing it. And then what have you learned from it? Sharing it with others like I'm doing now. And then what does that become? Becomes wisdom. Because you've learnt what worked, what didn't, tweak the odd thing, and then that becomes wisdom, and that becomes resilience. That wraps it up for me. If you want to explore any of these themes in more detail, I'd like to invite you onto one of my retreats. You can go to my website, www.theprovider.co.nz/retreats, and find out more. I also do one-on-one coaching. I also do group coaching and some like 6-week programs from time to time. Got a wealth of videos all about cooking up good food, about fishing, how-tos, about mindset, about men's wellbeing on my YouTube channel as well, on my social media, Instagram and Facebook. So reach out and I'll catch you on the next podcast.